Check. Yes, please join me in welcoming John and Gabriel Lipton. What's up, Vancouver? It's good to see y'all out here. My name is Kamil. I am the Executive Director of Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility. Oregon PSR is really excited to serve as a moderator of this event, and we know that you were going to have some questions here today, so we have reserved some time with John and Gabriel so you can ask your questions. I'll start off with a few myself. The first question goes to if you can update us what's currently happening with Julian's case, where it is today, and just in general what I'm sure all of us want to know, how is he doing?
Well, in the United States, Australia, Canada were very much involved in this and co-authors of setting up the United Nations because they understood that it was vitally important after 10,000 years of civilization to have a means whereby states could relate to each other through a body of laws and settle their difference through that body of laws and advance their interests in relationship to understandings that war was to be avoided at all costs because they had seen how the world itself was almost destroyed in the Second World War and it had caused 90 million people to lose their lives and entire nations destroyed. So we understood that. A great and magnificent civil gift brought into being in the late 20th century. 1948, Eleanor Roosevelt and Herbert Bear Everett, who was then the President of the United Nations, brought under their aegis the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a wonderful document which has been adopted in one way or another into the legislation of every European nation and most Asian nations. All nations now have taken care to implement human rights legislation in one way or another. Another great, magnificent gift emanating from the late 20th century. Lastly, well, there's two items. There's the Geneva Code attempting to govern relationships between states, warring states. And then there's the Conventions of Asylum. Julian Assange was an asylee. Asylum is a gift that you are given after a due process. And it's equally removed by due process. That came into being in 1958. In 1973, it was adopted into the United Nations legislature as a vote which only had 16 abstentions. I remind, at the time, in 1973, in Santiago, there were 10,000 people in embassies and missions that were under asylum. We understand also that this is a great civil gift because occasionally states get over-anxious about their security. All of those wonderful elements have been abridged in the case of Julian Assange. Another thing, due process. which requires either side to be equally armed. So the state, in its pursuit of its rights, has certain armaments and specific rules that they must follow. Equally, the defendant must follow rules. In Julian's case, it's been abandoned altogether. Another aspect is that the Swedish Prosecuting Authority and the Crown Prosecuting Service entered into, and this is documented from FOIs, entered into arrangements whereby they would subvert regular due process in the case of Julian Assange. So, as Gabriel says, it's a veil over a political persecution. One final comment of great interest, really, is that the extradition treaty between the United States and the United Kingdom specifically forbids extradition for a political charge. And espionage is always a political charge. Thank you.
Yeah. One important thing is that we're all here because we have an interest in this, or wanted to find out more. So if you could go see Elizabeth and after the talk, and maybe you could swap contact details or follow them on Instagram to find out what's going on, what actions are happening locally. For Julian.
I'd just like to add something about the revelations that Chelsea Manning brought to WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks published two things. One is that they were published simultaneously with the New York Times, Le Monde from Paris, Der Spiegel from Germany, El País from Spain, and The Guardian from the United Kingdom. None of their editors, journalists, or publishers are indicted or arraigned in any way. The leaks themselves are the revelations. One may think that the revelations actually are a burden upon the substance, the social substance of a nation. This is wrong. It allows a nation and its people to bring about repairs to their policy. It also makes really clear the areas of where those repairs or adjustments ought to be made, and equally motivates the polity to insist that those areas of failure are adjusted and don't happen again. Another aspect of leaks, really important. In 2006, a group of soldiers from the United States Army's outside Baghdad broke into a house, handcuffed the occupants, 11 of them, and 5 of them were children, and then in a spasm of bloodlust murdered them all. Seeing this crime, they called in an airstrike. However, the airstrike didn't quite obliterate everything, and the event was written up as a report. Excuse me. The event was written up as a report to the Department of State. Upon publishing the cables, the people of Iraq read, the politicians of Iraq and the bureaucrats read this report. Somehow that wrecked up nation managed to gather its courage and refused to sign the Status of Forces Agreement, which meant that the South Korea, Australia, Canada and the United States had to remove their forces from Iraq. One lead out of 250,000, one cable, brought an end to a war. So you can see that the gift that Chelsea Manning brought to the people of the United States, Iraq, Australia, South Korea, New Zealand and Canada, that gift brought a capacity for repair by the people of the United States and those other nations I mentioned, and also for Iraq to begin again the long process of reassembling itself after the destruction of that war.
Yes, right here.
I just want to, my name is Mike, and I just want to thank you all very much for being here. It means a lot to me. I was an Army medic in Vietnam, so I know how evil my government is. There wasn't one day during the Vietnam War where the United States government did not commit an atrocity. And this is what Julian Assange is exposing. He's exposing not just war crimes, yet he's exposing evil that the United States is committing all of the time. My question to John is that, do you think the United States has been playing a cat and mouse game with you all, and that do you really think that the United States wants Julian extradited to the United States?
I do, yes. I think that they're terrible. Let's say it's not the United States, because Gabriel and I have been here a good few times now. Last time we did the events across 15 cities, and this time it'll be, I guess, around 55 cities. We're warmly welcomed everywhere, and it's through the support, emotional, financial, moral integrity, and spiritual. People often come and say, we are praying for you, that we are able to do this. So I don't focus on the United States and its people. I place my focus intensely on Washington, and some of its institutions. And some of those institutions are determined to ruin Julian Assange, ruin WikiLeaks as a method to chill the First Amendment and ruin the Bill of Rights in its entirety, so that they can exercise arbitrary power, and disguise that arbitrary power as the necessity by causing people to be insecure in their day-to-day circumstances by raising hobgoblins and disasters before our eyes. Without a free press, that's what happens, that they have a free run. Now, Robert Kennedy Jr. the other day, he released a tweet which said that there's no America without a free press. And the second part, there's no free press without a free Julian Assange. The first part unpacks to give real meaning to any move to truncate, chill, blight, ruin, smash the First Amendment. Without the First Amendment, now who would know better than the citizens of the United States, in particular the Kennedy family? Without a free press, what is it then you have in the United States? it's worth looking at very closely, I reckon. Thinking.
Yes.
I was wondering if your legal team has considered filing a suit here in America against the government.
There is one suit that's been filed by some of Julian's lawyers and journalists, US citizens that went to see Julian inside the embassy. If you saw it in the film, the surveillance footage and that was being done there, you would go to visit Julian in the embassy, and the security firm that was working there would take your phone, they'd take your passport, and what people didn't know is that they were opening up the phones, taking photos of the IMEI numbers and all the details within the phone, passports, and creating a file for each person that visited. So these reports were flown along with the footage from inside the embassy every 15 days back to the US. So there is this group of lawyers and journalists, US citizens, that are suing Mike Pompeo and the CIA for the violation of their Fourth Amendment rights. So there is some legal action going on at the moment, which is ongoing. Also that security company, there's a judicial investigation that is ongoing in Spain that has summoned Mike Pompeo to testify about that. So there are legal actions happening. Some, I guess you would call them offensive rather than defensive legal action. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to thank you for making this film. I hope that Julian Assange is free, but whether he is or not, I think that this film will have a positive effect on the world. I think it has on those of us who've seen it tonight. It's a powerful human document, and as well as a wake-up call. And I've been aware of this case for a long time, and I have not done anything because I thought, what's the point? But now I will. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you. And that's very, very encouraging response. Thank you very much.
We had a question over there.
Never indicted. They never charged Julian. It's under the Obama administration. They looked into charging. Julian, and they couldn't proceed with the charges because of what they called the New York Times problem. So that if they charged Julian and WikiLeaks, that they would then have to charge the New York Times because they couldn't differentiate from what either of them had done. I think what you're referring to is General Carr, who testified at Chelsea Manning's trial, and he testified that they could not find any harm resulting from the publishing of the Chelsea Manning leaks, and they actually spent $6 million trying to find some harm that was caused by these leaks, and they had a whole team of people working for months and months, and they couldn't find anybody who'd been harmed because of these leaks.
Yes.
It's evident that irreparable damage has been done both to Julian and to press freedom.
It's a good question, you know, and worth lots of thoughtful consideration. But we take one step at a time. What's before us now is to get Julian out of jail. And then after that, we'd be delighted to tackle whatever problems arise with Julian back in the bosom of his family, able to sit in a cafe and just watch the passing parade. Julian hasn't seen a blade of grass in 14 years, nor a bird, nor a butterfly or a bee. He heard the horses walking and was transported, you know. And this is a man who hasn't broken the law and doesn't even have a driver's license, you know, he's never had a parking fine either. And is quite particular about things, as you would notice, because the WikiLeaks integrity of publication is unquestionable. So there's something quite grotesque about the pursuit of Julian Assange and the double-dealing, lies, cheating, smears, scandalous accusations, false leads, all of that leading to the destruction of the shimmering gold of the United States Constitution, the destruction of Julian Assange and the ruination of his family. Quite grotesque. Sweden, you might remember Sweden under Olof Palme, was seen as a model nation, you know, mixed economy. Now we see Sweden as having very strange law administration and a producer of junk furniture. Equally the United Kingdom used to have a reputation for fair adjudication because they write about $2 trillion worth of contracts a year, and they need to have a relationship, they need to have a reputation whereby people, if those contracts come into dispute, they'll receive fair and balanced adjudication. Well, what now after this? The Department of Justice of the United States' National Security Section is seen as blight and somehow or other wrapped up with all the crimes that Washington has seen fit to embark upon in the last 20 years. It does nobody any good whatsoever. It's the strangest thing that you could ever imagine and envision that this 14 years has revealed to us. That it's not, if I could just make one more point, it's not a burden on the consciousness of the citizens of the United States, nor is it a shame upon them, nor the citizens of Australia or the United Kingdom or Sweden. It is those governments that have brought in certain sections, certain of their institutions, disgrace upon themselves. And we will begin to see the correction. And Gabriel and I begin, because we have seen many tens of thousands of people, 600,000 people watched this film in Australia alone. We begin to see a shift, a rising tide, an incoming tide, a springtime. And that's brought about through the upwelling in the breasts of every human being for a hunger to see justice and an absolute revulsion at the sight of constant injustices. Thank you.
Folks, I think we have time for one more question. Is there one right here?
Yes, I was thinking about Daniel Ellsberg, who's come out so strongly in support of Julian, and he just announced that he had pancreatic cancer, has 3 to 6 months to live. Have you been in contact with him recently? And what a great voice he has been for him. And I just wanted to find out what you felt about that.
Yeah, we went to visit Daniel last time we were in the US. So, yeah, I mean, he's an incredible figure in US history as well as advocate for Julian. Most recently, he did a BBC program called Hard Talk, where he admitted that Julian, at the time of the Chelsea Manning leaks, had given him an entire backup of the leaks, so that if anything happened to Julian, that Daniel could publish it. And Julian, this is one of the only people that Julian would trust with this sort of responsibility because of his reputation and his character. And he admitted to that on this BBC program and basically begged the Department of Justice to indict him as well. So, even well into his 90s, he's still able to really grab a headline and the imagination of people, and he's an amazing advocate. I'm sure everyone will miss him very much, but hopefully he's got a little bit more time to make some more trouble before he goes.
In the last 8 years, I spent working with the refugees from all around the world, including in Afghanistan and Iraq. And myself, I am a first-generation immigrant from Pakistan, where the war crimes of the United States had spillover, especially on the border with Afghanistan. I can say without a doubt that Julian Assange is the real hero, and if you go and speak to those people that have been displaced at the millions by the US government, we'll find ourselves questioning today why Julian Assange is on trial and not the United States government.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to join me, Vancouver, Washington, not the Washington you were talking about, but the other Washington, in giving a standing ovation for these two gentlemen that traveled from Australia. Thank you. You can say it.
Thank you. Thank you.